All right, good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Kevin, or Mr. Peace. 2 fingers up for peace, real quick, thank you. I'm going to start with some hip hop, just to wake us up this morning, if that works for you guys. Okay, 2 fingers up for peace, let's rock it, here we go. Mic check. Alright, Whitmore Lake, it's good to see you this morning. Listen in, check it. It's love over hate, peace over war. It's the dream that MLK and Gandhi lived for. But now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. It's love over hate, peace over war. It's the dream that MLK and Gandhi lived for. But now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. Mr. Peace, empty heart, just to see that my dreams aren't as empty as my conscience seems to be. You still can't see my dreams, then you need LASIK surgery. I'm seeing 2020 and living life efficiently. The moment I arrive, I'm judged by what I wear, my language makes me come alive. And it's just not fair, but I'll keep making strides, believe skeptical remains, and I'll flourish and I'll thrive through the flow of my refrains. See, the people are my passion, and the reason that I'm rapping, bringing inner satisfaction to fuel a chain reaction. Let's play it, inspiration for your players, exploration. Only love is what I'm strapping in, the will to make it happen. It's love over hate, peace over war. It's the dream that MLK and Gandhi lived for. But now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. Now we're warmed up, all right? Give yourself a round of applause. All right, give me 5, 4, 3, 2, peace, thank you. So listen, my name is Kevin, or Mr. Peace. That's how I wake up every morning, a different beat on my alarm clock, and I wake up and just start rapping. No, I'm joking. But it's awesome to be here with you guys this morning to share my heart. I'm a full-time youth pastor at a church here in Southeast Michigan. I grew up in South Lyon. I live in Commerce Township. But on my off days and off weeks, I get to travel this whole country across the U.S. I've been in 20 states so far, and I get to speak to people from age 5 up to age 105. But before I begin any of my talks, before I start speaking to any audience, I'd just like to let you guys know that every single breath that I take this morning is going to be worth your time. The talk today has a lot to do with these 2 individuals, Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. King, and like the hook in my track just said, or the chorus had said, it's love over hate, it's peace over war. It's the dream that MLK and Gandhi lived for. But now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. Mahatma Gandhi, he said, not just be the change you wish to see in the world, but the actual quote is, you must be the change that you want to see in this world. So if you want more kindness, more love, compassion, respect to happen, it's not just an option or if you feel like it. He's saying we have to do this. And MLK, he said, we just celebrated his birthday, right? He said that the time is always right to do what is right. And what is right is to appreciate everybody around us, not only within these walls, but this entire planet. So the talk today has to do with bullying and seeing someone's heart first before anything else, but it also, more importantly, has to do with my shirt, one race, human. That we're able to see everybody around us as human beings before anything else. Everybody go like this real quick, make a fist. It's just like this. This is a middle school in Massachusetts on the East Coast. But everybody go like this real quick. I'll go like this. No, don't do that. Listen right here. Your fist is as big as your heart, right? Your fist is as big as your heart. But here's the idea. If we let love, peace, compassion, respect, kindness, empathy fully enter into here, we turn this into this. And the reason that it's 2, peace sign, right, is because one finger is yourself. The other one is someone you're trying to lift up higher than yourself, if you choose that. But it's also 2 because in just 2 seconds, one action, one word, one heartbeat, we can either uplift somebody higher in the clouds what we say or do stays on their heart in a positive way for the rest of their life, or unfortunately what we say or do in 2 seconds can destroy a life. That we cut someone so deep, it stays on their heart in a negative way for the rest of their life. And we're seeing this too often in the news. I just got back from Texas. Any 10-year-olds here? Show hands. Hands down. This is Caden Cole. He's from right outside San Antonio, Texas. Special needs student. And he's playing on a warmer Texas day. This is a few months back. He's playing with some of his so-called friends near their neighborhood in a field where they live. And these boys thought it'd be a fun idea to build a fire that day inside a shed. And he's really the brunt of a lot of jokes, but he doesn't really get it because he learns a lot slower than his classmates. He just thinks that they're his friends, but they're really making fun of him. So one of the boys thought it'd be a good idea to throw the gas can towards Caden, just see what happens. Some sprinkles on him, the fire's already going, he catches fire. Over half of his body's burned, put into a self-induced coma. He's doing okay now, but they go to interview these 4 boys. And 3 out of 4 said that they wanted to tell the ringleader, the person whose idea it was, they wanted to tell him to stop. But they were too afraid that if they did that, they wouldn't be accepted anymore. They wouldn't be part of the in crowd. So someone's life was less important than doing what's right. 10 years old. Any 9-year-olds here? Hands down. This is Laney Turpin. She's a 9-year-old from Alabama. And a special needs girl moved to their school. And her friend comes up to Laney and says, I don't want you talking to this girl. I don't want you even saying hi to her. You're my friend only. Because Laney wanted to say hi. She's just kind of like that. She has a big heart. Well, instead of her friend saying no, and rather you not talk to her and just stay my friend, she body slammed Laney to the ground and gave her 2 black eyes and a concussion. 9 years old. 8 years old. Jordan Jackson from Louisiana. He's walking home from school one day with his sister. Some of his classmates shout out, go back to the cotton farm. He said, that's racist. They say, no, it's not. So he starts walking faster. They start throwing wood chips at him and his sister. He goes to protect her. And in the process, they pull him back, pin him down, pull his arm back so hard, it fractures. 10 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old. I just got back from speaking in San Diego on the West Coast by the Pacific Ocean in California. And at this elementary school I spoke at, had a line of 50 students in tears wanting to share something on their heart after my talk. This 2nd grade African-American boy came up to me, 7-year-old, said, Mr. Peace, all my classmates are saying, go back to where you were born, go back to Africa. He said, Mr. Peace, I was born in Los Angeles, California. I don't understand. This 6-year-old Hispanic boy comes up to me, a 1st grader, said, Mr. Peace, all my classmates are saying, talk English. He said, Mr. Peace, I'm speaking English to you right now. I don't understand. This kindergartner, this 5-year-old comes up to me, this Asian girl, and she says, Mr. Peace, all my classmates are saying, open your eyes. She said, Mr. Peace, this is how I'm born. I don't understand. So here's my question. Do you think that the people that did this to the 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old thought about these things on their own? No. People all the time say kids are cruel, people are cruel. And I say, no, they're not. We're all just mirrors. All of us are mirrors. What you're taught, it's not this, here at this school, but wherever you're from, I don't come trying to pretend that I know what goes on behind closed doors, because I don't. But what you learn in your environments and people you interact with, unfortunately, many times, we reflect the bad things. And so we have a choice to reflect love or hate. Is it safe to say that what happened to all these students that I just talked about is going to be on their heart for the rest of their life? Yeah, but in a very negative way, right? Here's a more positive one. This is a school here in Michigan, middle school, near Lansing. I'm going to show you this video. It's about a boy named Keith. He's a special needs student. I want to have you guys watch what the football team at this school did to include him, and we're going to talk about it.
We end tonight with the football play of the month. It was executed with amazing precision by the Eagles, the Olivet Eagles. Steve Hartman has the play and the post-game analysis on the road.
Between classes, they schemed and conspired. For weeks, the football players here at Olivet Middle School in Olivet, Michigan secretly planned their remarkable play.
Did anybody go, this is a crazy idea?
No, everyone was in on it.
Like the coaches didn't know anything about it. It's really like going behind their back.
I've just never heard of a team coming up with a plan to not score.
It's just like to make someone's day, make someone's week, just make them happy.
The play, which was 2 plays actually, happened at a home game earlier this month. The first part of their plan was to try to get as close to the goal line as possible without scoring, even if it meant taking a dive on the 1-yard line, which it did. The crowd was not happy. Quarterback Parker Smith.
But us kids knew, hey, we got this. This is our time. This is Keith's time.
Keith Orr is the little kid in the brown jacket. He's learning disabled, struggles with boundaries, but in the sweetest possible way. Because of his special nature, it's no surprise that Keith embraces his fellow football players.
Hug, Gabe.
What is surprising is how they have embraced him.
Hello.
We thought it'd be cool to do something for him.
Because we really wanted to prove that he was part of our team and he meant a lot to us.
Nothing can really explain getting a touchdown when you've never had one before.
Which brings us to part 2 of their play. If you didn't see Keith, it's because they were so protective of him. But he was in the middle of that rush.
And when you crossed the goal line, what was that like?
Awesome.
It was like, did he just score a touchdown?
Get your camera out.
I'm like, oh, dude, I can't.
Keith's parents, Carrie and Jeff, almost missed the moment, but they got the significance.
Somebody's always going to have his back from now until the day he graduates.
She's right. When the football team decides you're cool, pretty much everyone follows suit. Today, Keith is a new kid. Although by no means was he the only one who was profoundly changed.
What was it like for you?
It was like once I saw him go in, I was smiling like about like here.
Wide receiver Justice Miller.
Like nothing could wipe that smile off my face.
Why did it attract you so much?
Because like he's never been like cool or popular, and he went from being like pretty much a nobody to making everyone's day.
Justice admits the play wasn't his idea.
I would have not really thought about that.
He says it never crossed his mind to give Keith any glory.
Well, I kind of went from being somebody that mostly cared about myself and my friends to caring about everyone and trying to make everyone's day and everyone's life.
Which may just make that touchdown the most successful football play of all time. Steve Hartman on the road in Olivet, Michigan.
All right, give it up for Keith. So look, this is so cool because this took a lot of courage, especially the quarterback. He took a dive at the 1, right? And his parents got really upset. The entire crowd, all the parents on that team got very mad because the game was close and they needed a touchdown. And they're like, why'd you guys take a dive? And this other team was like, guys, you got an open lane to the end zone, why didn't you walk in? But hearts started to change. And what people started to realize is that who won or lost the game that day wasn't as important as including this human being into this world, making him feel welcome. And what's so sweet is that not only did everybody at the stadium start to include and accept Keith, everybody at the entire school from that day forward started to accept Keith. All because of this one action that took a few seconds. And all of you guys have that same power. I was telling your principal earlier today that a lot of states that I'm starting to speak in, bullying is changing. Texas, for example, Wisconsin, these states have new laws in place that say if you just try to intimidate somebody one time, if you harass them, if you make them feel like they are worthless or worthless, that is bullying. Before it had to be over and over and over and over and over again. And this could be on social media or in person, physical, verbal, just how you look at somebody, not including them. That can be considered bullying. So we have to be so conscious of our actions because positive or negative, they can stay on someone's heart for the rest of their life. I was brought in to speak at a school near Milwaukee in Wisconsin. I'm heading back there this weekend to speak at a couple churches. But this sixth grader came up to me. Where are my sixth graders at? Hands down. This sixth grader named Anthony came up to me after my talk. He was crying. And I was brought in to help with their race bullying issue at the school. And he comes up to me crying. He said, "Hey, Mr. Peace, I'm not really racist. I just feel alone." And it turns out he was the main instigator for the bullying at the school. He was the main reason I was brought in, right? So sometimes it's because we feel alone. Sometimes it's out of fear, that who we fear, what we fear, unfortunately many times we hurt those we fear because we don't really get to know them. But why else does bullying happen? What do you guys think? Yeah. Just to kind of get a laugh, right? Sure, what else? Jealous, they have something that I don't have, like a skill, talent, or they own something that I don't have. What else? Maybe they got bullied too, so they're taking that out. What's your name? Megan, thanks, yeah.
Getting angry at somebody else.
So you're angry yourself, and you're going to push that pain onto someone else. We got to keep moving on. But listen, I've been, like I said, to 20 states. I've talked to over 1,000 schools, over 1 million youth the last 10 years. But the biggest reason I see why people bully is because hurt people hurt people. It's kind of what Megan just said. Because look, when you guys are first born, goo goo gaga, right? When you're first born, our hearts are kind of like this empty cup, pretty much empty, free of pain, hurt. People haven't called you names or diminished your spirit, your worth. They haven't said that you're not good enough, or that you're not pretty enough, or you're not tall enough, or you're not short enough, or you're not this enough, you're not smart enough, you're not enough. And if we believe those lies, our hearts, like this empty cup, they start to get full, right? And if I keep filling this up, what's going to happen? It'll overflow, right? I had a first grader say, "It's going to explode." I said, "No, it's not." But here's the idea. If this keeps getting fuller and fuller, right, eventually it's going to overflow and either onto ourselves, or we actually bully ourselves. We're the hurt people that hurt ourselves because we believe this lie that somebody told us about who we are and what we should believe. But even worse, it overflows onto other people. And we're seeing this too often in the news. But here's the thing. Whitmore Lake, no matter how full this gets of pain, hurt, loss, there's always room for love if we let it. There's always room for human kindness to enter, right? If we let it. So it's true, hurt people, but it's also true if we choose this. That healed people can heal people. And so what I mean by this is that the easy thing to do as a human being is that if I'm hurting, right, I'm going to push that pain onto someone else. But the hard thing to do is to forgive. So when I say heal people, that means that I've chosen to forgive somebody that's shown me only hate. And that's not easy. But we have to do that, because once we become healed, now we can start helping to heal other people. I had this fourth grader come up to me. I just spoke in Illinois the other day. Her name was Sandy. She gave me this bracelet. She was crying. She came up to me. One of her friends was holding her. And she told me that she just lost her best friend, who was also 9 years old, to a tumor and cancer. And her name was Alexa. And she said, "Mr. Peace, I haven't really been treating people the way that I'm supposed to. I haven't really been caring a lot about how I treat people, how I act. But I told her the best way you can honor her legacy is by how you choose to live today. That she still lives on in your heart, and you make sure that she didn't die for nothing, right? By how you choose to treat other people." And so look, MLK, he said that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And he said that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. I mean, it's crazy. I was just helping out with my youth group in Detroit, Michigan, at a soup kitchen a few months ago. And I was the mashed potatoes that day, and the girl next to me, she was the gravy. And we just kept going one tray after another because people that were homeless or just needed a meal came in for lunch. There was about 1,000 that day that we served. And I just kept going one after another. And our first break in the action, I started talking to this lady. And she tells me she was there 2 months earlier, doing the same thing, randomly serving one after another, right? And then she randomly looks up across the counter, and it's her brother. And she hadn't seen him in 15 years. And her heart just dropped. Because he fell in some hard times with living on the streets. She just ran across the counter, she dropped what she's doing, she hugged him, they embraced, they cried. But the whole point is that that's how we're supposed to be treating people all the time. But so much gets in the way, and why we have to be all in, why we have to become healed. And I just spoke in Houston. I was there for a week in Texas trying to bring some healing to students, teachers, schools that were affected by Hurricane Harvey. And it's crazy because what you see on TV or in person, whether it's Irma, Maria, Nate down in Florida, the wildfires in California, tornadoes, all these natural disasters, people from all walks of life come together. Caucasians, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, everybody comes to help their fellow human beings in these times of need. But guys, why does it have to take a tragedy for us to finally wake up to start treating people the right way? It shouldn't have to. I have a friend, her name is Irene Kopko. She's 103 years old. And I was at her birthday party, we were kicking it, and I was having some chocolate cake, sprinkles, fudge, frosting, really good. And I said, Irene, you're 103 years old. And she doesn't Snapchat or Instagram and stuff, but she still emails. She's 103. And I said, Irene, you're 103, like tell me about your life. Tell me the good times, the bad times, the glad times, the sad times, the mad times, and times around with dad. And she said, Mr. Peace, my most painful memory was back in 4th grade. Where are my 4th graders at? Right here. Hands down. She was in 4th grade, it's over 90 years ago. And she remembered it like it happened yesterday. It's still heavy on her heart. And she was at the front of the class, and this boy came up from behind her. And he made fun of her because of her height, because she was shorter than her classmates, and because of her weight, because she was heavier. And it just humiliated her in front of everybody. And she carried this around with her until she was 40 years old. Every time she tried something new or was about to try something new, she said, no, I'm too short to do that. I'm too heavy to try that. And then finally, at 40 years old, she finally forgives this boy in her heart. And she becomes a youth worker to help other students who felt how she felt. She became healed to help heal other people. And look, I was speaking at a school in Indiana. There's 1,000 students at this elementary, and in their gym it was probably 4 times the size of this room. And I was speaking to the whole elementary at once. And during my assembly, the 2nd grade teacher interrupts me during the whole assembly. She comes up front, she's like, hey, Mr. Peace, everybody, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to share something on my heart. And she says her most painful memory was 40 years ago, back in 2nd grade. Her name's Kate, and she was the new girl at school. And right before lunch one day, this group of popular girls came up to Kate and they said, hey, Kate, you can sit with us today at lunch. Go get your lunch and then come sit by us. And she's like, you serious? Is this a joke? They said, no. Go get your lunch and then come sit by us. So she gets her lunch tray out of the lunch line. She's thinking to herself, oh my gosh, this is my shot. I'm going to finally fit in. I'm going to finally be accepted for who I am. And she goes to sit down. And as soon as she sits down, all the girls stand up on their chairs. And they shout across the cafeteria so everybody can hear them. They say, hey, everybody, check out Kate. She came in a Ford nice clothes. And she runs out crying. And you see, her parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, so sometimes she had to wear the same outfit 3 times a week to school. And she was put down because of it. It took her some time to forgive these girls in her heart, but then she finally chose to become a 2nd grade teacher. So that what happened to her back in 2nd grade, her most painful memory, would never happen again to any other students, any of her students on her watch at her new school. She became healed to heal other people. And I was checking out of a school in California, signing out, ready to leave, and this 3rd grader named Dominic came up to me. He said, hey, Mr. Peace, do you want to know what my most painful memory was? I said, yeah, tell me. He said, it was 2 years ago in 1st grade. I had my heart crushed by this girl. I had my heart broken. And so I'm thinking to myself, kids are starting to date younger and younger, Facebook push. And it turns out that's not what it was. There was a 5th grader on the bus, and for 2 months straight, 2 months in a row, this fifth grader turned to this first grader, Dominic, and said, "You're never going to have any friends. You're never going to have any friends." Just because he was born in the Middle East, in a whole different country, she was putting him down because of that. But think about the impression, a fifth grader to a first grader. He said he came home the first night, he cried himself to sleep. He said he didn't want to go back to school again, it felt like his heart broke into a billion pieces. He said, "Mr. Peace, I hurt so bad. It felt like I didn't even want to be born." But then he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "But you know what, Mr. Peace?" I said, "What?" He said, "Now I have best friends. Now I have best friends." How many of you guys have best friends? Hands down. How many of you guys have a best friend because they include you? Hands down. How many of you guys have a best friend because they make you laugh? Hands down. How many of you guys have a best friend because they got your back? Hands down. So listen, Dominic started crying. He said, "Mr. Peace, that's my best friend David, standing in the office." He was a fourth grader at the time. He said, "Mr. Peace, he's my best friend because when I was getting bullied, teased, harassed, put down, judged, ridiculed, he stood up for me when I didn't have the courage to myself. That's a best friend." And I was speaking in Chicago, and this fifth grader named Cheyenne came up to me after my talk. And she said, "Mr. Peace, there's a girl named Jenny just moved to our school this past fall. She's in a wheelchair for life. She's in a wheelchair permanently." And she said the first day that Jenny got to school, Cheyenne's friends pulled her aside and said, "Don't even talk to this girl. She's different, she's weird." And Cheyenne said, "No, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to my heart." So she went up to the girl and said, "Hey, do you want to be my friend?" And Jenny said yes. And ever since that day, lunch, recess, library, gym, she includes Jenny. And then Cheyenne tells me something, and that's the actual wheelchair. She said, "Mr. Peace, when I see her, I see this before this. I see her heart first before this wheelchair, before this piece of equipment." There's a speaker named Nick Vujicic. Nick Vujicic, he's from Australia. You guys might have seen him before, but this is a picture of him. He has no arms, no legs. He was born without any arms, without any legs. He got bullied so severely growing up, you guys can imagine, right? To the point that he had thoughts of even taking his life. And it turns out he has a wife now, 2 kids. He speaks all over the world, and he was talking to an elementary school in a gym about twice the size here. And on one side of the gym, there were some bleachers. And at the end of the assembly, when all the students and teachers started to leave and exit, this mom with her 3-year-old daughter, they were in the bleachers watching the assembly. And this 3-year-old for 45 minutes was trying to stay still. But we all know what 3-year-olds do, whatever they want, right? And so finally, when people started to leave, it was over, the mom said, "Just go, run around, get your energy out." And she bolts and just starts skipping and hopping and twirling and cartwheels and floating everywhere she wants to go. And now she's running full steam all around the gym. And she's the same height as Nick. And pretty soon she's running right towards Nick. He's on the floor, usually he's on his wheelchair, but he's saying bye to people on the ground. And he sees her coming, but she doesn't see him. He's like, "Oh no." Because he can't move, he doesn't have arms and legs, right? But at the last second, at the corner of her eye, she catches him and she slams on the brakes. And they're face to face. And she takes a step back. She looks him up and down. She says, "What's going on here?" She's never seen him without arms and legs, right? But her next move, without really thinking, she puts both of her arms behind her back like this. She hugs him with her neck like this. And it was so beautiful. That's the only way that he can hug, right? It was so beautiful because she didn't care how tall he was, whether he had arms or legs, the branding of his clothes. All she cared about was this. And I was talking to a school in Connecticut, this 8th grader named Kellen, tall as me, 6'3", 6'4" on my good days. He came up to me after my talk. And he said, "Mr. Peace," he was the most popular kid in the school, tallest, most athletic by far. Quarterback on the football team and stuff. And he came up to me after my talk and said, "Mr. Peace, a girl named Sarah moved to our school 2 weeks ago." He said, "Sarah's got 3rd-degree burns all over her body. Her mom and her got trapped in a house fire. And the house burned down, but they both made it out alive. But in the process, she got burned really badly. And because the house burned down, she had to get a new house in a new school district. And her first day at this new school, she walks into the gym before school starts. That's where they all hang out before the bell rings. I'm not sure if you guys have a place like that, but she ends up walking in, and all eyes are on her. And all eyes are on Kelly to see what he's going to do. And he walks up to her, and he says, "Hi." And then he says, "You're with me." Which meant nobody will put you down, nobody will tease you, nobody will bully you. Could have been up to her, called her ugly, every name in the book, stated the obvious imperfection, but he chose a higher path. And for those of you that have that power and influence in this room, especially the older classmen of this school, and you know who you are, and I know who you are because I get heart vibes, you have that choice to use your power and influence for good, to build up, or for destruction. That's your choice, right? There's a story about a kid named Shane. He's 6 years old in this picture, and his dog Belker. And his parents come up to Shane one day, he's playing with his toys in the house. And they say, "Shane, we have to talk to you. We got to talk to you, son." They say, "Belker's very sick. Belker's been suffering a lot. And we have to put him to sleep." And so Shane looks up and he says, "Okay, I understand." And he goes back to playing with his toys. And they're like, "Did he not just hear us? Why isn't he showing emotion? What's going on?" So then they say, "Okay, well, we got to pick you up after school today. We have to go to the vet. We have to do this." So they pick him up from school. They go to the vet. And the doctor's telling Shane what's going to happen, that Belker's very old and he's really been suffering and he's going to go to a better place now, or he won't have any more pain. We have to put him down. And Shane looks at them and he says, "Okay, yeah, it's okay." And they said, "Why aren't you crying? Like, what's going on?" He said, "Well, because I know why dogs don't live as long as humans. Because they've already understood the meaning of life. Unconditional love. It just takes us longer to figure it out." I mean, isn't that what we're here for? Is to love people without any conditions, whether they're taller, wider, thinner, shorter, glasses, different skin color, different background, different language, doesn't matter. We still accept everybody. See them for their heart first. And if we did that as our best friends, treated everybody like our best friend, we wouldn't have bullying. You guys might have seen the movie Wonder. This is a real life wonder. His name is Jackson Besant. He's from Idaho. He's 8 years old. And he has Treacher-Collins syndrome, the same syndrome that the boy who's playing Wonder in the movie has too, right? But this guy really has it in real life. And what it is your bones and your tissue and your face don't fully form, so it looks disfigured. And so he came home one day, after classmates day after day, and he learns a lot slower too than his classmates, were making fun of him, calling him monster, freak, ugly. And he tells his dad at 8 years old, "Dad, I want to end my life." At 8 years old. And so his dad gets on social media and he says, "Can anybody send my son some encouragement?" Anybody. So people your age from all across this country, the world, start sending him videos. Thousands. And they start encouraging him, telling him how beautiful he is, how great he is. And so he goes back to school the next day. And somebody is still calling him names. Telling him how he looks. And these 5 boys step forward after hearing what happened, that his father put this plea on social media. And after they call him a freak again, these 5 boys step up at the school. They say, "No, that's not how we treat people here. That's not going to work for us." And ever since they made that stand, everybody includes and accepts Jackson. But the reason I'm showing you this is because all of you have the same power, not just to affect lives and hearts sitting here in this room at this school. You guys have the power to affect lives thousands of miles away, if you choose that, positively, right? I was speaking in Utah, this 5th grade boy came up to me after, at the end of the talk, and he wanted to share something on his heart. It was an open mic. I said, yeah, go ahead and share. He said, his first words out of his mouth, he was born with a cephalitic head, he had Soto syndrome. His head was twice the size it should be for his body size. So he was always getting put down. And he gets on the mic, and the first words out of his mouth, he says, I didn't mean to be born like this. I didn't mean to be born like this. I need friends. Will someone be my friend? And his sister in the back of the auditorium runs down the aisle. And she hugs her brother. And it starts a whole chain of kindness. It took an hour and a half after that. One person at a time came up, one at a time, to give him the same kind of hug. A word of kindness, and some to apologize for how they treated him. But you can't begin to imagine the impact this had on Jackson, on this boy. Changed their life forever, right? But his sister, the boys that stood up for him, they all risked getting bullied themselves, judged themselves, teased themselves, ridiculed themselves, spit on themselves. They all risked everything just to include these people that otherwise wouldn't be included. And that's beautiful. But it takes courage to stand up for others, and even for yourself. I had this 3rd grader named John. He sent me a message on Instagram a couple weeks after I spoke. He said, Mr. Peace, I got tripped in the hallway by this bully. 2 weeks after I spoke, he got tripped. And he said he stood right back up, and he walked over to the bully. He shook his hand, smiled, said, have a great day, and walked away. And as he's shaking this bully's hand, the bully's mouth dropped. And everybody watching, their mouths dropped. Because they expected him to cry, to run away, or to try to fight back and fail. But he did the opposite. And the biggest thing that this bully who was hurting inside needed, he showed him love. And I was telling a principal and some other people today, I'm not guaranteeing bullying will stop here at Whitmore Lake, but I will guarantee that the response to bullying will change. I'm staying for lunch with you guys today. And this 4th grader named Uriah came up to me at lunch a few weeks back. He said, Mr. Peace, there's this bully at our school, but I really truly think if we start showing him more love and kindness every day, his heart will change. This 4th grader started to realize our power that all of us have, right? To see someone for their heart first, but also to see somebody for this. Every one of you on the palm of your hand has the letter M etched on your palm. With the lines of your hand, sometimes on both hands, sometimes just one hand. With the lines of your hand on your palm, you have the letter M. I traced mine. And sometimes it's a faint line that connects it. But this M stands for miracle. Upside down W, it stands for worthy. But here's the problem. So many students I speak to, they can't see this in themselves. I spoke at this school, and this 4th grader named Dylan came up to me. He was crying, and he pulled this out of his pocket. And he said, Mr. Peace, I'm constantly getting bullied for my size. I'm small for my age. He also had some issues going on at home. But he said that you forgot, Mr. Peace, that M also stands for mistake. And he pulled this out of his pocket. He said, Mr. Peace, I look at this once a day to remember who I am. He was called this from somebody that he cared about, whose opinion he valued in his life, that was close to him. And he believed this lie that says, I'm a mistake. But he said, Mr. Peace, I don't want to believe this anymore. I want to believe this. So that same week, his classmates, they sent me this. All their hands with the miracle, and they said, his hands in there too. They said that we're going to start to include Dylan. We're going to help him see his worth, to be his friend, to support him. Right? I just spoke at this other school in Pennsylvania, and this 5th grader named Kyden came up to me. And this school where I spoke in the district, they house all the visually impaired students. So she had a walking stick. She was legally blind. And she came up to me after my assembly. And she said, "Mr. Peace, can you trace my hand? Can you trace my M?" So I did. She said, "Mr. Peace, that's the first time I've ever felt like a miracle. All of you guys have that power." I spoke at a youth conference, and this girl named Emily came up to me, like an 11th grader, and she was a special needs student. She was talking slower. I could tell something was going on. She had a stroke. A few months ago, she was going for rehab to get her speech back. And she said, "Mr. Peace, I can't see my M." And I said, "Well, can I see your other hand?" And it was clenched like this. She had something called Dupuytren's contracture, which is where the tissue in your hand starts to gradually harden on itself. You can't really open it unless you have surgery. And so I said, "Well, can I open it? And you can do it physically." I said, "Can I look?" And she said, "Yeah." So I peeled one finger back at a time, and underneath was one of the biggest M's you've ever seen in your life. And for her to see that in that moment, all the bullying she was facing because of her new issue that she had with her speech, it was so important for her to see that. And then I got an email from her two weeks later. And she said, "Mr. Peace, I just went to the doctor for a routine checkup. And she said I had a full movement in my hand." And that's a whole other story. But even more importantly than her physical healing, she was healed in here, in her heart, right? So we have this choice to help people sometimes be their light to their mirror, to help them see their worth, that they are miracles. But we also have this choice to choose kindness. And a piece of me dies every time I see on the news. You saw what just happened in Kentucky a few days ago. There was another shooting. Some of you guys know what this picture is about. For those that don't, in 2012, 26 people lost their life at elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut, Sandy Hook, to one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history, mainly elementary students. And I was brought in to speak here and some other schools in the district to try to bring some healing. And the whole focus of this community is not on the tragedy. They want to focus on kindness. And so the 2nd grade class, they all gave me this. They all signed it. And it says, "One kind word can change someone's entire day." One kind word can change someone's entire day. Do you guys believe that? Look, I'm here today to tell you, Whitmore Lake, that I believe one kind word can save a life. And why it's so important for us to choose kindness, for us to choose love. I had a 1st grader named Trey. He came up to me at lunch. I came back a couple weeks later after spring break, after I spoke at this elementary school. And he sees me in the cafeteria. He's like this tall. And he sees me across the way. He's like, "Mr. Peace, Mr. Peace, my boy, come here, Mr. Peace." He was so happy to see me. I said, "Hey, Trey, what's up?" He said, "Hey, Mr. Peace, do you remember when you told us to treat people with more love and kindness and respect and compassion?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I went home that day and I asked my dad to start treating me, my mom, and my sister with more love, kindness, and respect." And he told me that his dad looked at him and said, "Don't you ever talk to me like that. I'm an adult. Don't you ever talk to me like that." And he pushed him aside, and a week later he took off. There were a lot of other issues leading up to that. But Trey came back to school on fire, enraged. He said, "Mr. Peace, people will feel my pain. People will feel how I feel." And our eyes are locked. And I said, "Trey, you still have a choice to be a great son to your mother, a great brother to your sister, and one day if you choose to break that cycle, a great father." And I see a tear coming down his cheek. And I'll never forget his next words. He says, serving chicken. I said, what? He said, yeah, Mr. Peace, they're serving chicken tenders for lunch. They're bomb. You got to try them. I said, what? And this first grader's mind was already on to the next topic. But I come back another 2 weeks after that to speak again at the school, and Trey finds me in the hallway, and he comes to give me a hug, and he says, Mr. Peace, I'm choosing love. I'm choosing kindness. I'm choosing peace. This 7-year-old, right? I had a kindergartner, this 5-year-old that wrote this for me. I get so many handwritten letters, and this is like a thank you card and like a book too. And it's from Lillian, and it says, thank you, Mr. Peace. Aim for the good days, not the bad days. And inside, it's blank. And I said, why'd you leave it blank? She said, I did that on purpose, Mr. Peace. And I said, why? She said, because we choose what we're going to make our life, good or bad. We choose love or hate. This is a 5-year-old. So a 5-year-old can think about this and still choose love. The only word that's in focus there in the middle, the red word, is love, right? But there's still going to be hate and fear and bullying and all these things around us. But this can overcome all of that. And we have to be all in, guys. I spoke at this school. This 4th grader, after my talk, just came, she fell into my arms. She was just crying like uncontrollably. She said, Mr. Peace, her name is Julia. She said, Mr. Peace, I'm getting bullied just because of where I was born, in Korea. And she just couldn't stop crying. And she said the first day that she got to school, she was the new girl, she tried sitting at the first lunch table. As soon as she sat down, everybody stood up and walked to a different table. Embarrassed her in front of everybody. So she tries the second table, she sits down, and the same thing happens. Everybody gets up and they walk to a different table. Humiliate her in front of everybody. So she tries the third table, she sits down, and this boy next to her looks at her and says, you can sit here. You can stay. And now they're best friends. But what's even cooler about this is that now Julia makes it her job, because she knew how it felt to be alone. She makes it her job every day at lunch to look for other people who she thinks feel alone or look alone or are sitting alone, to go and sit next to them and be there for them, to include them. Same thing on recess with the buddy bunch. I don't know if you guys have that here, but when it's time for someone that wants a friend or someone that needs someone to play with them, they sit there, and then school leaders, safeties, ambassadors, they come up and they include this person. And I just spoke at the school here in Southeast Michigan, and these 2 girls, Mackenzie and Anaya, these 2 5th graders, they said, Mr. Peace, we're starting a Mr. Peace Club here at the school. Today, it starts now. And other schools I've been in, they do a club based on their school acronym, like a CARE club. At the school I spoke at just yesterday, like a kindness club. But I said, what's this about? They said, well, you put your name here, the date you joined, and you write down people that you think need a friend, or people that you think need love. And then you go and be their friend. At lunch, at recess, they're up to 50 people, part of their club. I just spoke there a few weeks ago. It's changing the whole culture of the school, because they're choosing to positively make the change that they want to see. And we have to do this, guys, because the need is there. It's stories like this. This is about Teddy Stollard. Teddy certainly qualified as one of the least. Disinterested in school, wearing wrinkled clothes, hair never combed. He was one of those kids in school with a expressionless, unfocused stare. When Miss Thompson spoke to Teddy, he always answered in monosyllables. Unattractive, unmotivated, and distant, he was just plain hard to like. Even though his teacher said she loved all in her class the same, deep down she wasn't being completely honest. Whenever she marked Teddy's papers, she got a certain pleasure of putting X's next to the wrong answers. And when she put the F's at the top of his papers, she always did it with a flair. She should have known better, though, because she had Teddy's records and she knew more about him than she wanted to admit. The records read, 1st grade, Teddy shows promise with his work and attitude, but poor home situation. 2nd grade, Teddy can do better, mother is seriously ill, he receives very little help at home. 3rd grade, Teddy's a good boy but too serious. He's a slow learner, his mother died this year. Fourth grade. Teddy's very slow but well behaved. His father shows no interest. Christmas came. The boys and girls in Miss Thompson's class brought her presents. They put them on her desk and crowded around her to see her open them, and among them was one from Teddy. She was surprised that he brought one, but he did, and his was wrapped in brown paper with a piece of Scotch tape that said, "Love, Teddy, for Miss Thompson." When she opened his gift, out fell this gaudy rhinestone bracelet with half the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume. The other boys and girls started to laugh over his gifts. But Miss Thompson at least had enough sense to silence them by putting the bracelet on and spraying some perfume and saying, "Doesn't it smell lovely?" And the children, taking their cues from the teacher, said that they agreed. At the end of the day, when school was over, the other kids had left, Teddy stayed behind. He slowly came over to her desk and said softly, Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mother. And her bracelet looks really pretty on you too. I'm glad you like my presents." When Teddy left, Miss Thompson got down on her knees and asked for forgiveness. And the next day, when the kids came to school, they were welcomed by a new teacher. Her name was still Miss Thompson, but she'd become a different person. She was no longer just a teacher, she was now an agent of love. And she was now a person committed to loving all her children, doing things for them that would live on after her. She helped all the kids in her class, but especially the slow ones, especially Teddy. And by the end of the school year, Teddy showed dramatic improvement. He had caught up with most of the students, was even ahead of some. She didn't hear from Teddy for a long time though. And then she received a note that read, "Dear Miss Thompson, I want you to be the first to know I'll be graduating second in my class from high school. Love, Teddy Stoller." 4 years later, another note came, "Dear Miss Thompson, they just told me I'll be graduating first in my class from college. I want you to be the first to know the university hasn't been easy, but I liked it. Love, Teddy Stoller." And then 4 years later, "Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I'm Theodore Stoller, MD, Doctor." How about that? "I want you to be the first to know I'm getting married next month, the 27th to be exact. I want you to come and sit where my mother would have sat if she was still alive. You're the only family I have now. Dad died last year. Love, Teddy Stoller." Miss Thompson went to that wedding and sat where Teddy's mother would have sat. She deserved to sit there. She had done something for Teddy that he could never forget. And all of us have that power. If something I shared today touched your heart, can you raise your hand? Put your hands down. So I had about 45 minutes with you. And if I could touch your heart in 45 minutes, you think about the impact you can have on someone's life over an entire school year or a whole lifetime on their hearts. And if something I did share touched your heart, that means you were given a gift. And now it's up to you to go share that. Every talk I give, I put about 10 or 12 of these bracelets on that I choose. And these become my strength and my armor. I have thousands of these. This is one of my bags. And every bracelet that I've been given were from students who said, "Thanks for coming today, Mr. Peace. Thanks for touching my heart." And other students like Dylan, who I showed you earlier, who said, "Mr. Peace, if you didn't come today, I may not have seen the light of tomorrow." That's how serious the bullying issue and the pain was getting in his heart. So we remember that we all have this same power, right? And look, I'm going to be giving your teachers one of my cards. They can make copies for you guys. If you want to remember, though, MrPeace.org. You guys can follow Instagram, Mr. Peace Geese, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, my channel there, Mr. Peace 101. If you guys want to follow the message that way or continue it, you guys can even get these shirts in different colors on my website, on the store, and all that information is on these cards that they'll make copies of for you. On the back's the peace sign. There's also these other shirts that say, "Keep your head up," upside down on purpose. So when you look down, it says, "Keep your head up," or "You're feeling down." And that's one way to continue the message. You know, there's CDs, DVDs, but more importantly, guys, I want you to continue the message by how you choose to live today, how you want to be remembered. A lot of schools, too, are starting to do a kindness pledge. I saw your t-shirts, too, which I really like. But this started at a school in California. Everybody traces their hand, the whole entire school. They put the M wherever it's located on their hand for miracle. and they write one positive thing they're going to do every day to show more kindness. That they're going to talk to a stranger, they're going to be someone's friend, they're going to include someone, open a door, whatever it is, small actions that lead into big change. And they commit to this every day, make it into a giant peace sign to remember what we talked about today. I only have a few minutes left, and I just want to tell you guys that you guys have already touched my heart. I'll be here at lunch and after this talk too for a while. If you want to share something on your heart, I don't have all the answers. I just try to reflect what you guys already know. That you're beautiful, you guys are miracles. Sometimes you just got to be reminded of that, right? And if you don't have time to talk today, and you need to reach out to me through sending me a message or social media, I don't always get back to you right away, but I always get back to you. That's my promise. And I've seen a lot of tears, and that's okay. Because tears are strength. They're the sweat of our strength, and they're the start of healing. That means you're starting to feel again. And it takes courage to do that. So I want you guys to support the people that you know need a hug, need some love, but know that I'm going to be around today too. If you guys close your eyes for a second and just point to yourself. Close your eyes and point to yourself. You can open them back up. One time I forgot to say that, a second grader kept them closed the whole talk. But the idea is that if we're all pointing, most of us, 9 out of 10 of us are pointing right here to our hearts. Because sometimes that's the only thing people remember you for or want to remember you for is your heart. But not if you're the one adding more marks of pain to someone else's heart. The people who want to remember are those choosing to forgive, move past their pain, become healed, and help heal other people. Because the need's here. You guys are beautiful. I'm going to close with some hip hop, because that's what I do. And on a positive note, I get all of my hip hop skills from your principal. She's a great hip hop artist. If you guys did not know that, that's the hat she wears. Got to get in my zone. A second. You guys can give me a hug or a high five on your way out, or we'll see you at lunch, okay? Here we go, let's rock it. It's about bullying and looking at someone's heart first. Like, check. Here we go. Whitmore Lake. 2 fingers up for peace and just rock from west to east. Listen in, it's up to us all to put a stop to the bull in the classroom halls and within these walls. I want to go to school no matter the grade. I feel safe, I feel loved and celebrated. So I gotta put myself in the other person's shoes, cause what I say might hurt and stay stuck like glue on the other person's heart, and that's just not nice. I gotta stand up with more rank for what I know is right. If I see someone get bullied, I think of this rap and do what I can, all that I can to take action. Now is the time, and it's okay to tell an adult or a teacher and get some help. Yo, it's up to us all to put a stop to the bull in the classroom halls and within these walls. I want to go to school no matter the grade. I feel safe, I feel loved and celebrated. So starting right now, I'm going to make a pledge to treat everyone like I treat my best friend. Now is the time, and today is the day. Put a stop to the bullying. No more pain, no more pain, no more haterade. Just the Gatorade, or the Powerade, or the Minute Maid. Now you got it made. Listen, listen, hey, come on, when I say peace, you all say in. Peace, peace. And when I say peace, you all say out. Peace, peace. All right, guys, thanks for touching my heart. Thank you.